Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
So hello, how are you doing this week? We are still here in Colorado, catching up on all of the mail that came in, and in some cases, orders that came in over at the storefront over at innovation.tools. So if you're waiting for something, I apologize. Trust me, it's in the mail on its way. If you haven't ordered anything, hop on over to innovation.tools and check out all the tools and supplies there that could help you and your team inspire and create the next great innovation. Some of my biggest innovations, people have asked me all the time, what was it that kind of was the spark for the innovation that won this product of the year this year or became a big win in the marketplace on another year? For me, some of my biggest innovations came to me as a result of an unexpected inspiration. Wasn't looking for it. I just happened to experience something, see something, observe something. That just became that spark that turned into a product or a service. Has this ever happened to you? Now, this week's show is about where to find innovation inspirations. Where do you go? Where do you search for these things? Where do you find them? And in today's show, I'm also going to share with you a few stories of some of the inspirations that led to innovations I bet you are even using today. So listen in, check out those stories in today's show, and see if you are not using some of those inspirations today. But before we jump into today's show, got a favor to ask. Can you like, follow, and share? Like this episode, follow us on social media, and share. Let others know, post to your social media accounts so that others can find our show and they can also apply it to their innovations, their creativity, the projects they are working on. And with that, let's jump in to today's show. How do you find exceptional ideas that can lead to market-defining innovations? Where do you go find them? Do you have to read endless market research studies telling you what others want? Where do you find those inspirations? Now, focus groups, market research studies. I've talked many times about my previous practice when I was the CTO at Hewlett-Packard, going into retail and watching people buy product. And if they did not choose an HP product, maybe they looked at an HP laptop, but they bought a competitor's laptop, I would instantly interview them to understand kind of what was the decision criteria. But where do you find your inspirations? Now, we've talked about looking through fresh eyes. Fresh eyes being seeing something as if you were seeing it for the very first time, to have that same awe and wonder you have when you saw something for the very first time, even though you may have seen it literally thousands of times. But fresh eyes need input. They need inspiration. Where do you point your eyes? What are you looking at? They need to be pointed in a direction that can see what others don't see. That's the definition of an innovator. You are seeing something that nobody else sees. So, where do I find my inspirations to see new ideas? And not just the normal ones. And I've talked about them on and off in the past 17 years on this show. But today I want to talk about maybe some of the ones I have not talked about, maybe the non-obvious sources of inspirations on where do I come up with some of these really crazy ideas that I've come up with. So number one is what I call unexpected conversations. Now, I like to talk with interesting people. If I find somebody that's got an interesting background, interesting history, coming from an area maybe I've never been to, had a different kind of upbringing that I'm not familiar with, I get really intrigued. I look for opportunities to meet and have these conversations, And these are normally people I don't hang out with. They're not people that live near me. Maybe they're not at a conference that I normally attend. So I look for these unique opportunities. Airplanes, great place to find these. Traveling across the country, I've had some very interesting conversations stopping at rest stops and just seeing somebody with maybe a license plate from an area that I don't know, or they've got a pet that is overly friendly, or they've got young kids, and you just want to have a conversation with them. So just chat. One of the ways that I can be deliberate or make sure that I am engaging with people I normally do not engage with is attend events like TED. I've been a regular TED attender, so this is the TED main event. Starting in Monterey, went to Long Beach, and then to Vancouver, and then with COVID, it was canceled. The next one's coming up here in another month or so. It'll be in Monterey, California. But these are people from all walks of life, from all over the world, coming together, and it's a little bit of a different event because everybody's talking about ideas. Now, you can just go in and have great conversation and feel good and, wow, that was interesting and fun. But you need to be an active listener, not just be there to have great conversation. You need to be an active listener and ask great questions. Ask the next question. Dig a little deeper. Peel the onion a little bit further to try to uncover something that is just not obvious. So the objective when I get done with one of these conversations is to walk away with at least one exceptional idea. Now, I have a canned set of questions I ask people when I have these unexpected encounters, like, what are you curious about? What is it that you're really curious about that you've been reading about or investigating, or things that are just kind of rattling around in your head? When you ask people what they're curious about, that tends to kind of open up a door for you to potentially uncover something that you maybe are not thinking about, given your background and what you're involved in, etc. So that's an example of asking what I would call is really good questions. Another question I sometimes ask, which is a fun question, is what innovation do you hope to see come to fruition during your lifetime? So that kind of opens up people talking about, wow, I really want a flying car, or I want a robot in the house to clean my dishes. It gives you a little bit of insight of innovation tied to their own personal desire. So again, unexpected conversations. And don't set the mode that you're expecting them to deliver the unexpected. You can use your questions to generate this unexpected conversation. So, let me give an example of one that I personally experienced. And this was many, many years ago, back in the mid 90s. Talking with some friends and also my uncle. My uncle owned Macarthur Fish and Poultry in Oakland. So, a very popular fresh fish, fresh poultry retail establishment right on Macarthur Boulevard, right in the heart of Oakland. And, he, became quite enamored with that business. He didn't start off being in the retail or the fish business. He was a Vietnam veteran, 101st Airborne, came back to the States, was an accountant by training, was co-founder of a company that got acquired by Bechtel, and he was retired by the time he was 40. And a buddy of his from the Army, and he started Macarthur Fish and Poultry. And one of the things that frustrated him and frustrated, the other retail stores and outlets in the Oakland area was missed phone calls. If you're in a retail business and someone's calling you up to find out if you've got fresh lobster or, fresh turkey or salmon or whatever, they want to know the answer now. If you're not there, they're going to go to the next phone number. And I always saw that as missed opportunity. So what stores normally do is they put in multiple phone lines. Well, during holiday seasons, you couldn't keep up with all of the phone calls coming in. So what was the idea that came out of this? Well, I was in the telecoms business, and I quickly figured out that every phone record, every time a phone number was dialed, whether it was connected or not, was captured. So even if some person A calls person B and the phone rings busy, nobody answers, that information is recorded. Now, it has no billing impact. Most telecom companies think of that as throwaway. In fact, up until the point of this invention, everybody just threw those call detailed records away. They had no value. They were there, but they were just nothing you could do with them. What we did is we actually took all of those phone records. We would then, soon as someone called and got a busy signal or got a no answer, we immediately took that call detailed record, reverse looked up the information, name, phone number, address of the person calling. We then put it into an email and we sent it to the store owner. So the store owner would get this email saying, Bob Smith just called, got a busy signal. Here's his address. Here's his phone number. Then the business owner could call them back and say, hey, Bob, I saw that you called me. Sorry, I wasn't able to take your call. Can I answer your, what questions do you have? And retailers found that they could actually close much more business. They looked much more responsive. And we did this in a product called Imagine that we launched in 1998 that went on to huge success as a automated platform for the telecoms industry that allowed retailers. So this was an unexpected conversation, just talking with my uncle and talking with the shop owners along Macarthur Boulevard in Oakland, California, to kind of find out what was this annoyance around busy signals or incomplete phone calls. And so that unexpected conversation led to an invention that actually became kind of the cornerstone of what was Telligent, which then grew to be a $3.1 billion business. So never underestimate the value of an unexpected conversation. Some other interesting areas that, became, part of this, looking for these inspirations, was around, doing the unexpected, finding something and just being observant. So number 2 is being observant of what annoys you. Now, in many cases, we have annoyances, things that kind of bother us, but we don't really think about it. They're not conscious annoyances. They may be just something that we've just developed to work around. But they can also be annoyances that somebody else, someone close to you in your family, that they're experiencing. So what is causing this annoyance? And then asking yourself, well, how could you take away this annoyance, right? So how could you take away this thing that just is kind of nagging, at you? So, for example, smartphones. Now, smartphones in the past used to not be all that smart. Now, keep in mind, I've been in the mobile phone business since the late 80s. So, been around in this industry for quite some time. And I built many of the early mobile phone companies, including Vodafone, Monosmon, which is market 1 for Vodafone in Germany, MT in South Africa, OmniPoint, which was the first GSM carrier in the United States. But when you looked at the actual phone handsets, what they used to call a smartphone was not very smart. They were basically single task, single app at a time. You could play Snake on a Nokia phone, but you couldn't have in the background downloads or streaming and those kinds of things happening at the same time. And you really had a very poor excuse for any kind of alerts when you had a calendar or meeting alert pop up, or a new email maybe came into your mailbox. The group that really solved this problem was Palm. And Palm had transitioned from the old Palm Pilot to developing an entirely new concept of an operating system called WebOS. Now, the WebOS team solved this. And this involved everything from multitasking to being able to have true multitasking where multiple applications could be running and doing things simultaneously at the same time. And in fact, I loved, not just liked, I loved WebOS so much that I helped talk HP into purchasing it to the tune of 3.5 billion. That's a B, billion dollars. And we acquired Palm. Now, WebOS had everything from multitasking to a very sophisticated alerting mechanism that did not eat and burn up your battery, very long battery life in the phones. It was what I would truly call the top of the line, best smartphone approach out there. It even was way ahead of Apple and others. Now, all the smartphones today all have multitasking. They have the cards that allow you to flip between different applications. Those cards, the whole card concept, where you can flip easily back and forth between all the applications running on your phone, that came from WebOS. WebOS developed that first. And so even what you have today in your smartphone came from this from the Palm team aimed at WebOS. So thank the Palm team, Andy Grignon, and all of the engineers at Palm that developed WebOS. Now this came again from Annoyances. Andy and the team were annoyed that you could not, even though you had a very small device with a small processor in it, you could not do true multitasking. They solved it and turned it into what I classify is an exceptional idea that went on to become a great, great product. Now, there's a lot of other, issues and challenges that came as a result of that. But I still think it's a great device. In fact, I still have my WebOS phones and my touch tablet, which runs WebOS, here in my office here in Colorado. Number 3. So you get, we talked about annoyances. What's number 3? Number 3 is asking questions. Asking questions. Now, this is actually going in and thinking and asking questions to everything you are doing. And the questions are typically the journalistic questions of who, what, where, why, when, how. And when in applying these questions to everything you are doing, everything you are accounting, it allows you to go deep into an area of interest. Now, for instance, right now I am reading a book. It's titled, "This is How They Tell Me the World Ends." Lovely title, huh? This is how they tell me the world ends. The subtitle is "The Cyber Weapons Arm Race." It's written by Nicole Perlroth from the New York Times. She's a phenomenal writer, by the way. I love this book. It reads like a thriller. It's a true page turner, even though it is a nonfiction. Now, as I read a book like this, and I read lots of books, I do a lot of audiobooks, I do a lot of physical paperback books. Publishers send me books to read, to review, or to potentially have their authors come appear on the show. So I get tons and tons and tons of books. Now, books that I really get engaged with, where I'm really interested in the subject matter, I've come up with, a way to generate ideas, and that is by asking these questions. Dig a little deeper. Don't just take the words on the page and flip the page and go on. Ask yourself, what are the next, what's that deeper thing? What is that who, what, where, why, when, how type of questions that allow you to dig deeper? Now, in this book, Nicole's book, which is This Is How They Tell Me the World Ends, I've come up with tons, literally tons of ideas based on what she shares in the book. And this is all about cyber weapons and viruses and security and denial of service attacks and ransomware, all the things that are in the headlines for us today. And I've shared in previous shows, I have a background in information security and viruses and hacking, and that is part of my long distance past, going back into the late 80s, early 90s. But this is just one example of even something as simple as sitting down and reading a book being deliberate. My objective is to come up with at least one interesting idea from every chapter. And I've shifted, and I've talked about this, about the tools and how I capture these ideas. I've shifted to reading more and more on the Kindle, because those items that I can highlight in the Kindle automatically get transferred over to my Roam research account, which then picks up all the keywords of those highlights, links them all together, and allows me to collect up, what I refer to as my second brain. It keeps track of all those connections of everything I've read, all my notes, my magazine articles, my books, even my podcast that I listen to, all can appear in my Roam research. And if you haven't heard that show, go back. It's, 6, 7 shows ago. I talked about the tools I use, and I walk you through my workflow and how I load these kinds of information into my second brain, which then becomes the source for exceptional ideas, which then in turn become the next great project or product or innovation that I'm working on. So in conclusion, these are just a few areas of inspiration that lead to exceptional ideas, right? Unexpected conversations, look at those annoyances, ask questions. The key here is you can find inspiration everywhere. There's literally inspiration everywhere. If you're sitting here listening to this podcast, if you're in your car or you're sitting on the couch, you can simply just look around and you can find something that inspires you to then come up with an exceptional idea that can lead to an innovation. And also be aware that in some cases, that inspiration can come in the strangest areas. That conversation with somebody who you just don't think it's going to go anywhere, you just happen to ask the right question that then opens up that unexpected insight, that unexpected idea. Or being very observant about the annoyances that are out there. Or if you're reading a book or listening to music, check out, ask those questions, and you can come up with those ideas. So, here are the steps. If you want to be inspired to come up with those exceptional ideas, here are the steps. Number 1, be highly observant. Open your eyes, pay attention. Just don't kind of glance around and let it slide over you. Be highly observant. Notice things. Notice the little things. Notice the big things. The key is be observant. Number 2, be deliberate. Be deliberate. Challenge yourself to find ideas in everything you do. So every action you take, be deliberate about looking at that item, that activity, whatever you're doing. Every activity, every conversation, every book, magazine, movie you see, be deliberate. Capture ideas. Capture the good ideas. Every book, generate one idea per chapter. Every conversation, one idea from every conversation. Every book, magazine, movie, every activity, capture those inspirations. Capture those early nuggets. And then number 3, take action. Do something with the ideas that come from these unusual inspirations. Because remember, innovation, inspiration is everywhere. Now, in summary for today's show, don't let any activity go to waste. Treat everything you do as an opportunity to be inspired. Inspiration is what will feed you to create exceptional ideas. And innovators see what others don't. So be deliberate, be observant, because innovation, inspiration truly is everywhere. Thanks for your time in today's show. I do greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to listen to the show. Hopefully you find it beneficial. Would love to hear feedback from you. You can post a comment wherever you get your podcast. You can drop me a note over at phil@killerinnovations.com. Can you help me pay it forward? Can you let others know? We started this show back in 2005 based on some feedback that I got from my very first mentor, Bob Davis. He was my first real boss. And many, many years later, when I went back to thank him for the time he put into my career, establishing the foundation that put me into a position where I am today. And I wanted to pay it back. And he laughed and goes, "You can't pay it back. You have to pay it forward." And that was the inspiration for the show back in 2005. And we are still paying it forward today. And I need your help in paying it forward by letting others know about the show so that I can have that impact. I can pay it forward to more and more people. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Can I also ask one more favor? Tell our sponsors that you appreciate their support of Killer Innovations. Without their support, it would be much harder for us to keep to the schedule of doing a weekly show. And 50 new fresh episodes every year. We don't do the 12 or 15 for the year and then just do reruns. We do 50 new fresh shows each and every year. And we could not do that with the staff and team that supports the effort here without the support of our sponsors. So can you hop over to the sponsors and thank them for their support of Killer Innovations? I would also greatly appreciate that. Get inspired this week. Find that next exceptional idea, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.